version 3.3 is expected to be the second anniversary patch for Wuthering Waves. And if you've played long enough, you already know what that usually means. Big reruns, high value banners, and sometimes even a selector if the developers are feeling generous. None of this is confirmed, so treat everything here as speculation for now, but it's a speculation built on patterns the game has followed before. Yo, welcome back to the channel. Kamusta po sa inyong lahat? What makes anniversary patches different is that they don't just throw random characters back into rotation. They tend to focus on units that either define the meta, enable entire team archetypes, or have built up enough demand over time that players are basically waiting with their currency ready. So instead of guessing blindly, we can actually narrow things down logically. Let's start with the obvious headline. Aemeath. Her last appearance was during version 3.1 around January to February of this year, which means she's still relatively fresh, but that hasn't stopped her from dominating the meta. If there's one character that practically screams anniversary rerun, it's her. She came out not too long ago, but her impact has been ridiculous. She's widely considered the top DPS right now, and her Exo Strider mode has basically become the benchmark for clearing endgame content like Tower of Adversity. Even players who don't usually chase meta units are eyeing her because she just makes things easier. If the goal of an anniversary is to get people pulling, putting Aemeath front and center is the easiest decision they could make. Phrolova is another name that keeps coming up, and for good reason. Her last rerun dates back to version 2.8 phase 2 around late October to mid-November 2025. She's one of the most reliable sub-DPS options in the game. Consistent off-field damage, solid crowd control, and a kit that just works in almost any setup. She's the kind of character you don't always notice at first, but once you have her, your teams feel smoother and faster. That kind of value tends to age very well, which makes her a strong candidate for a rerun in a major patch like this. Mornier fits into a similar category of long-term value, but from a support angle. She last appeared during her initial release window from December 2025 to January 2026 in version 3.0. She's basically the backbone of many fusion and tune break teams, acting as both a healer and an energy regenerator. If you're running Aemeath or any fusion heavy composition, chances are Mornier is right there holding everything together. And anniversary patches often bring back these foundational units because they enable players to actually use the flashy DPS characters they're pulling for. Now let's talk about Carlotta. Her last rerun was back in version 3.0 around December 2025. She's one of those characters that doesn't appeal to everyone at first, but the people who got her really get her. Her HP scaling mechanics and dual form gameplay creates a playstyle that feels very different from the usual rotation-based approach. There's a learning curve, but the payoff is huge. Characters like this tend to develop a cult following over time, which makes them perfect candidates for a rerun when player interest peaks again. Then you have Chisa, who fills a completely different role but is arguably just as important. Her most recent rerun was from February 5 to February 26, 2026 in version 3.1, phase 1. She's not about flashy damage numbers, she's about making everyone else better. Her ability to increase negative status stacks and apply defense shred make her one of those characters that quietly sits in the background while your damage numbers skyrocket. Even with a recent run, Hiyuki and Denia push her value even higher since both favor negative status setups, making another appearance here more likely. Carlotta is another interesting case. Her last rerun goes all the way back to September 2025 in version 2.6. She hasn't been around for a while, and with newer units entering the scene, players are starting to look back at older synergies. With Lucilla now part of the conversation in the 3.x era, the idea of building a secondary glacial comp is becoming relevant again. That naturally puts Carlotta back on people's radars despite the arrival of Hiyuki. Now, Shakona is a bit more niche, but in the right setup, she's incredibly important. Her last rerun was during version 3.0 in December 2025, and she's basically the glue for arrow erosion teams, stacking effects that turn what would otherwise be average damage into something actually competitive. If Kartithia shows up, there's a strong argument that Shakona won't be far behind, because the two of them together unlock a completely different level of performance. Next, Camellia is probably the easiest inclusion to justify from a popularity standpoint alone. Her last major rerun was during the first anniversary back in May 2025. She's been a fan favorite for a long time, and her unique combat style still stands out even now. Some characters fade as new ones release, but she hasn't really lost that appeal. If anything, the demand has just been building because she hasn't had a major spotlight recently. Then we have Brant. Brant represents the opposite end of the spectrum. His last rerun was around August 2025 in version 2.5. He's not flashy in the same way as newer units, but he's reliable, he hits hard, he's straightforward to play, and he fits perfectly into monofusion setups. There's always a portion of the player base that prefers that kind of consistency over complex mechanics, and anniversary patches usually try to cater to a wide range of playstyles. And finally, we have Roccia. Her last rerun also dates back to August 2025 in version 2.5. She's one of those characters that doesn't always get talked about in casual discussions, but high-level players know exactly how valuable she is. Defense shreds is rare, and when you're trying to optimize clear times, it becomes incredibly important. Bringing her back in an anniversary patch would make a lot of sense for players who are trying to push their performance further or are planning to increase the damage of their Camellia. Other possible reruns lean heavily towards Wang Long, including Jian, Yin Lin, Jinshi, Chang Li, Sheji, Zhang Liao, and Shorekeeper. Shorekeeper stands out as the most likely, while the rest feel less urgent, mainly due to lower recent demand. In general, newer units sell better with the roster now this large. When you look at all of these characters together, a pattern starts to form. It's not just about who is strong individually, it's about how they fit into the broader ecosystem of the game. You've got top-tier damage dealers, essential supports, niche enablers, and fan favorites all in one pool. That's exactly the kind of lineup you would expect from a celebration patch. Of course, there's always a possibility that the developers go in a completely different direction. They could prioritize newer units, introduce unexpected reruns, or even change how anniversary banners work entirely. That's part of what makes this interesting. We're working with patterns, not guarantees. But if the goal of version 3.3 is to feel like a true anniversary, then stacking the banners with characters like these would be the most straightforward way to do it. It gives newer players a chance to catch up, and it gives longtime players a reason to spend their saved resources. At the end of the day, this is all theory crafting based on current trends. But it's the kind of theory crafting that usually ends up being at least partially right. The real question is not whether these characters deserve a rerun, it's which ones the developers think will make the biggest impact when the patch finally drops. As always, if this video resonated with you, please leave a like and subscribe, ring that bell for massive gacha luck and maybe a sandwich. Thank you so much for watching, maraming salamat po, and I will see you in my next video drop. Goodbye.